Nebraska trying to get back into the Big 12. Oklahoma being proposed by USA Today to also return. That's crazy. It just might happen. This is Locked On Big 12. Squad.
You're talking ball with the Big 12 squad. From Oklahoma State to Utah, from Kansas State to BYU, from Houston to Texas Tech, it's the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network bringing you scoops, breakdowns, and the most comprehensive preview of the upcoming Big 12 weekend. Buckle up. It's the Big 12 squad, and we have a seat for you. No hurt feelings and thin skin allowed. Squad up. You're part of the Big 12 squad.
And happy Thursday night, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Big 12 Squad. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 with you, America's #1 Big 12 podcast. Thanks for making my show your first listen every single day, and you probably don't. Odds are you're making that guy's show your first listen every single day. Jake Hatch of Locked On Cougars, talking all things BYU, or maybe even Cody Stovall, Locked On Oklahoma State, talking about the Cowboys. If you hit subscribe, we get to keep our jobs. Let's start in the realignment sphere here, and because there's been a lot of ruffled feathers the last couple of weeks, guys, over Nebraska wanting to come. They tried to come back to the Big 12 at one point, and that Bob Bowlesby conversation was a very Bob Bowlesby conversation of Bob being Bob, and how different the Big 12 could look if we actually did college football right, because regionally we don't do it right. We have Rutgers playing UCLA, and as we start there, just a quick note and nugget. This is just us being nice. It's just being good people. We record the shows Monday night. By then, a lot of basketball has happened. Thursday's a reprieve back into college football. Give you a taste of that just because we don't want to be talking about basketball topics that are 3 days old and seen. Jake Hatch, Cody Stovall. Cody, you're an original 8 guy. Bring back the Big 8, baby. Bring back Bedlam.
Drake, anytime somebody starts having this Big 8 conversation, it makes me feel some type of way. I go Talladega Nights mode. I can feel it in my loins and the rumble of the racetrack. I need this back in my life. Just, you talked about the regionality. I think it affects recruiting in a way that doesn't get talked about enough. We already know that high school recruits are getting screwed the most in this wild, wacky world of transfer portal NIL that we live in. But I think if you had more regionality, that would help with recruiting. Guys, there's a reason that Nebraska used to be more dominant than OU, or at least equal to OU in dominance. And I think a large of that is geographical footprint. So they need to be back in the Big 12 as much as we need them, because we don't have any freaking rivalries, fellas. We lean on the Holy War and hope that carries the weight compared to Bama, Georgia, and OU, Texas, all these other games. And I hate it, man. It blows my mind. It's the only thing Brett McMurphy has failed on is generating rivalries in this conference. If you do this, that sorts all of that out. And I do think it puts the Big 12 more on a national respectable pedestal.
Hatch, would you take a Nebraska? Do you want that? Does a BYU fan want that? Or do you want to become the new darling, be the new Nebraska?
No, I would actually like to see Nebraska come back into this league, because it brings kind of the traditional Big 12 feeling back to this league. And I'm not saying that BYU wouldn't be obviously getting extra competition to be atop this league, but that Nebraska is synonymous with Midwest football, not Big 10 football, and that's the Big 8. That's the Big 12. So if Nebraska has any inkling of coming back home, yeah, get them back here. And same thing for Missouri, same thing for Oklahoma. I'll take any and all of those. If they want to come back to the Big 12, the more the merrier in my world.
Well, what's the biggest knock on the Big 12 is we don't have a flag bearer. We don't have a blue blood. We don't have somebody that can carry that mantle. Nebraska could come back to the Big 12 and at least carry that from a cachet perspective. Sure. It's a national talking point, right? Us being in the Big 12, we see it a little bit differently. But at the same point in time, that's why you want Miami. If the ACC falls apart, you got to have a flag bearer, and we currently don't have one. Nobody's ran away with it, right? Arizona State, BYU, nobody has taken the mantle of we're going to be that team yet. And Nebraska, unfortunately, they still carry that level of cachet. They're still kind of a blue blood, and I think they would have more success in the Big 12, which would help the Big 12. I think we need this, Drake. I really do.
So the reason a big piece of this conversation kicked up, John Kurtz has done a great job of covering it, by the way, and I like listening to his. I think rising tide lifts all boats. There's no competition. Like, oh, look, a competitor, John Kurtz. Like, I love John Kurtz's stuff. Sorry, sue me. He kind of sparked this conversation, and from there, folks have ran with it in building their own realignment scenario. So I want to show you guys one that I found this week. If FBS conferences were based on geography, now some of this you can't. It's never going to make sense. That being because you'd have a conference of Michigan, Ohio State, and Kent State, Eastern Michigan, Akron, the MAC, right? Because they're all close.
Yeah.
if we could go back to day one of college football and start all over and have a conference where, hey, what if BYU, Oregon, Utah, Washington, Wyoming all had the exact same leg up, all had the exact same starting point on third base and could try to build in college football? This could work, but it makes me think too, man, how neat would it have been if we could have just gotten it right from the beginning? Money has ruined it, but regionality in college football is something we're missing at an extreme rate. And that's where I think we lose the nostalgia of the sport. That's why I think we've got to a callous point now where a lot of fans are saying, okay, I don't like watching Georgia play Ohio State every year anymore in the playoff. I want to see the underdogs and the fun matchups that are rare and unique.
Well, and to your point, Drake, is this is a sport that was built on that regionality. And you mentioned it, the money's kind of ruined it all. Realignment, it was driven all by money. It always goes back to money. And that's the sad part about this, because we're seeing the professionalization of college sports unfolding right before us. And there's no way to go back to what it once was, sadly. Just the toothpaste is out of the tube at this point. And even as much as I would love to, you point out kind of that Northwest 12-team conference there that includes BYU, Utah, Colorado, Washington, Oregon. That'd be phenomenal. That'd be a really, really fun league. The sad part is just with the powers that be right now, there's no way that anybody's ever going to agree to go back to what it was. It's only going to go forward with what it is currently.
So when I see that graphic, I see Arkansas State, I kind of laugh. I see Missouri State, unless it's baseball only, I kind of laugh. I see Tulsa, I get sad, all right? I may have shed a tiny tear just now, but this is a huge opportunity for Brett Yormark, right? We're talking about realignment and how everybody's going coast to coast now in realignment. What if Brett Yormark was the only commissioner that actually tried to bring things back to how they used to be? If Brett Yormark is the dude that tries to bring the Big Eight back together, I think from a marketability, profitability standpoint, that does a lot for the Big 12. It makes the Big 12 substantially different instead of a conference that's fighting with everybody else to grab all of these available teams. I don't even know if you could consider OU part of this, right? OU and A&M, they act a little SEC-ish. They have SEC money, so they might make a little bit of sense. But Missouri, if you were to ask them if they regret leaving the Big 12, they would be stupid to say otherwise. Same could be said about Nebraska. I think this would be huge for Brett Yormark. If he's like, well, everybody else is racing to go to the coast and get UConn and fight for Gonzaga, we're trying to bring everything back to the roots of college football. We're trying to keep things the way they used to be. That might bring a fan base back in, because you are right, Drake. A lot of us old heads, we've kind of given up on loving college football again. Covering it is different. Loving it is starting to become more difficult. Brett Yormark can capitalize here.
Cody just said something that a lot of you are going to think is stupid, but he's right. And it's that Missouri would come back to the Big 12. Oh, no, we're making so much money. Here's why Cody's right. And I'll lay it out for you in layman's terms you can't disagree with. Up next on the Dose Grande Squad. One of these, right? It's one of the, yeah.
I'm Kalia Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. South Carolina rolled past Ole Miss 85-48 to clinch a share of the SEC regular season title and lock down the number 1 seed in the conference tournament. The Gamecocks extended their win streak over Ole Miss to 21 straight. UCLA dominated Wisconsin 80-60 to secure its first outright Big Ten regular season championship in program history. The Bruins improved to 27-1 overall and remain unbeaten in conference play. And number 12 TCU stormed back from a 13-point fourth quarter deficit to beat Iowa State 80-73. The Horned Frogs now sit alone atop the Big 12 standings and are 1 win away from clinching another regular season conference crown. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
Cody Stovall, you ask a Missouri fan from Joplin, hey, would you go back to the Big 12? I ain't going back to Big 12. We make more money here. Yeah. I would say, and fans get so caught up in the dollar sign, that extra $20 million Mizzou makes every year didn't go to Dan in Springfield. It didn't go to Jerry in Joplin. And Billy in Branson is still struggling to pay his bills, even though Missouri is getting $20 million more a year. So you can argue like, oh, it's so much more fun my school has. But yeah, the kids have a new hot tub. They do. They've got a new hot tub. It, A, didn't put a dime in your pocket. B, somehow your ticket prices still went up. And C, you're losing more games. You're losing at a more alarming rate because the competition is stiffer in the SEC. Is that what you wanted? An oversaturated conference with solid teams at the top? I think your viewer experience got much worse when you left the Big 12 because you can't compete on an annual basis to win the SEC.
Yeah, I think you're 100% accurate. I don't think any Mizzou fan, it's kind of like OU fans. Let's be real. OU fans, with their bluster, they're going to be like, no, we would absolutely not. But deep down inside, they miss being the top dog. They miss being a team that holds trophies instead of a team that's just somewhat competitive. I would imagine that if you inserted some truth serum and even OU fans, they would probably prefer to come back to the Big 12. They'll never admit it, though, and I understand why. Missouri's a little bit of a different case, man. They had a lot of success in the Big 12 in multiple sports. It wasn't just football. They were competitive across the board, and they have lost a lot of that in the SEC. And you cannot tell any of us with a straight face that this shift to the SEC is not directly responsible for their downfall because they have to compete now with Bama for recruits instead of Oklahoma State. I think it matters, and I think they're struggling.
Well, I'll just add this. Obviously, BYU for years when they were at the G6 level, Mountain West WAC era, they were the top dog in their league. That's just the way BYU kind of operated. And Utah and TCU had moments in the leagues that they were in with BYU where they also operated as a top dog. BYU's been accustomed to kind of being that in a league that they've been in, and I think they aspire to be that here in the Big 12. But to your point, Cody, if you're talking to a Missouri fan in their heart of hearts, yeah, they want to compete at a far higher level than they're competing at in the SEC. You mentioned Oklahoma. They love being front runners. There's just no doubt about that. And I think they would like to be atop the Big 12 and where they can really kind of run this league. And it goes to the same thing for Nebraska, for example. They have been so accustomed for decades at being that proverbial top dog that now that they are playing fifth, sixth, seventh fiddle in these respective leagues that they have joined in the name of collecting the almighty dollar. Well, guess what? There is something to be said for being as competitive as you can be in a league that may not make you top dollar.
Cody, that, yeah.
I think Jake kind of hits the nail on the head here that the profitability, it's great. The money you're getting, it's great. But as you mentioned, Drake, it's not going to the fans. Okay, let's rewind this. Why did Nebraska's AD reach out to Bob Bowlesby about at least exploring the idea of getting back to the Big 12? Because he kept getting complaints about the travel and the investment, and donors were saying, I don't want to keep doing this. This doesn't make sense. Why are we paying X, Y, and Z to get nothing? The return on investment has been atrocious for Nebraska. It's going to be the same for Mizzou, right? Their return on investment in the SEC has been atrocious. I don't care who you are. You want to be competitive, right? As Oklahoma State, we were super competitive. We were competing with OU for Big 12 titles for 15 of 18 years. And we've gotten so far away from that. We just want to be competitive again. We just want to be relevant again. Missouri goes through stretches where they're irrelevant for 5, 6, 7 years. That's insane to me.
Yeah. Another piece of this conversation that we don't get to, we're Big 12 guys, is Marshall. Like, why? What does Marshall have to do with this? The disparity in money between the Big 12 and the SEC is that gap's massive, right? Mm-hmm. But we can still fend for ourselves pretty well. Iowa State's not cutting tennis yet. They're not cutting golf yet.
Right.
But like Marshall, I saw a video yesterday of the entire American Athletic Conference standing around an indoor swimming pool, holding the hands of the Marshall swim team. We found out last week their program's been cut. Yeah. Like, this is your last opportunity to compete, and you're not. You think about your sophomore swimming at Marshall. You aren't going to Marshall anymore if you want to keep swimming in college.
Well, real quick, Drake, is I think that what you're describing right there is why programs like North Dakota State are making the leap to the Mountain West. Sorry, Sacramento State is paying top dollar to get into the MAC of all things, because they see that ship kind of sailing away and realizing if we don't get on that ship now, even as crazy as the long shot it is to make it onto the, I guess, other ship in a way, like to transfer.
Sure. The tugboat.
Yeah, you've got to get on that boat, because if you don't, you're screwed. And that's what Marshall's dealing with right now. That's what all these programs that are, I hate saying the term have-nots, but that's what it is, because you're right. Iowa State's not cutting sports yet. BYU's not cutting sports yet, but Marshall and these G5, G6 programs, they have to consider that, because if they truly want to compete in the biggest sports, speaking of football and men's basketball, guess what? It requires more and more money being funneled that way, taking money away from these other sports.
Yeah.
And if you
a serious
sorry.
problem.
If you have the backing, you should enjoy it, right? A lot of schools are getting rid of sports. Oklahoma State's sitting here trying to consider whether we're going to build a hockey rink and bring hockey into the fold.
Awesome.
And it looks like it's actually a viable option. There's actually investors and donors pumping this stuff and pushing this stuff. Like cowgirl wrestling is kind of taken off and becoming a thing. We might be adding sports. So Cowboy Country, we're not broke, right? Mike Gundy calling us poor. That wasn't true. We were just waiting on a reason to reinvest. We have found those reasons. It's good to be in Cowboy Country, even though it's been a little bit of a struggle the last couple of years.
Well, I'll just say from the BYU perspective on this, for years, BYU boosters, and Drake and Cody, you know how robust the booster base is for BYU. For so many years, there was not I guess you call it a legal means for them to be able to invest the way that they wanted to invest in BYU athletics. With NIL and the advent of that becoming above board, BYU boosters like, I'm in, let's do this thing. And to BYU's credit also, they opened the floodgates and said, okay, if you want to invest money in this, we will invest it where you want us to invest it, and we'll put it into athletics. And that's why BYU is on what feels like a very much equal footing just 3 years into their Big 12 tenure, because that money has completely changed the dynamic for the Cougars.
I think we just saved college football. Good job. Good work, guys. Make us. We'll be the commissioners of the sport now. Coming up, Brett McMurphy just released his way too early college football playoff. It features 2 Big 12 teams. One of them, big surprise. This is the Dose Grande Squad. Today's show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Dog. Look, I get up every day at 5 o'clock, do a radio show in the morning, stay up late. Why do I stay up late? I'm 25. That's what you do when you're 25. With 5 Hour Energy, we're bringing you to the flavor draft. 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like Confetti Craze, Fruity Rainbow, Cotton Candy, something for everyone. My number 1 overall pick, though, Strawberry Banana, Tropical Delight, sweet strawberry flavor. Love the Hawaiian Breeze. Been around with Watermelon and I hung out in high school, but it's Strawberry Banana for me. Very low acidity, easy to drink. 5 Hour Energy Shots gives you a boost with 0 sugar. 5 Hour Energy has a ton of upcoming flavor innovations as well. Find your new favorite flavor of 5 Hour Energy Shots available online, 5hourenergy.com or Amazon, 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. 5 Hour Energy. Drink one today. Also brought to you by Game Time. Game Time's where I go, man. Wanted to go to the Grand Ole Opry this weekend. And you're thinking, you can't go to Game Time and get tickets for the Grand Ole Opry. I did. Saturday, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? The whole the crew that the talent that played on their album for that movie 25 years ago will be at the Grand Ole Opry. I wanted to go. Game Time got me the tickets. And for way cheaper than I thought that they would be. Game Time guarantee means 100% legitimate tickets as well. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Use code LOCKED ON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Code LOCKED ON when you download the Game Time app for $20 off. Download that Game Time app and do it today. Jay Katz, Locked On Cougars. Cody Stovall, Locked On Oklahoma State. You can find each of us, if you are an everydayer and love our shows, at the Everydayer Club. Locked On Big12.supercast.com. Locked On Cougars.supercast.com. Locked On Oklahoma State.supercast.com. Something like that. For our everydayers who want ad-free Locked On listening experiences. This is a lot. Brett McMurphy's way too early college football playoff, where he has Notre Dame winning the national championship. That's not.
I think we lost Drake's audio there, but Cody, but he points out Notre Dame winning the Natty K. That's one thing, but did you notice right there, Utah as a playoff team?
I see that. And you know what? This is disrespectful because Brett McMurphy is an Oklahoma State alum. He should be pumping this Drew Mestemaker, Caleb Hawkins, Wyatt Young to the CFP more than anybody. I cannot believe ESPN beat an alum to Oklahoma State getting into the CFP conversation. This is an egregious crime by a Cowboy.
And that's the interesting part about this, Cody, is that Utah's got a whole new look in their coach. I know it's a holdover with Morgan Scalley taking over. He's been at Utah forever, but it's a new look on that offensive staff and whole new offensive line. I know that Devin Dampier is back, but I understand why Texas Tech is there. It's very clear that Texas Tech is going to be playoff caliber. I'm just a bit floored that Brett McMurphy, to your point, an Oklahoma State alum, he's back in the Utes more than he is O State.
Well, it's got to be disrespectful to you too. Like, you guys have been the next best team in the Big 12 for 2 straight years and got screwed over 2 straight years. So if anybody's going to be poised for that position to compete with Tech, automatically it should be BYU. This love, this infatuation that everybody has with Utah, I don't flip and get it, fellas. I don't.
Hello,
get
gents. Hi, good to see you.
Hey, buddy.
It's me. Hatch, here's what I don't get. And I had JT Westercell on the show earlier this week, my show, to talk about it. Utah's losing its entire offensive line. Line coach, offensive coordinator, head coach, by the way. John Henry Daly, pretty good player. They're losing 8. Stars is a strong word, but they're losing like 8 pretty solid contributors, either NFL draft or to Michigan, that were stalwarts last year and or would have been great next year. How do you? They lost their OC. Is it just Devin Dampier? Can Brett McMurphy name more than Devin Dampier on their roster?
I would like him to name more than him and Wayshawn Parker, because those are really the 2 that I'm thinking of. And I can say that Braden Pagan comes down from Utah State as their potential number 1 wide receiver, but I get where some people believe so heavily in Utah because they were so consistent during their Pac-12 era. But the problem is there's a massive changeover here, even though a lot of the names that are still there are holdovers, because Morgan Scalley's been there forever. But you mentioned new offensive coordinator, new offensive identity. Are they going to gel with that quarterback tandem, both Devin Dampier and Bird Ficklin, with Kevin McGibbon as their new offensive coordinator? What does the new O-line look like? I know that Kelvin Obot is the highest rated offensive tackle prospect in the entire country, and they're figuring he's going to hold down one of those spots, but there's 4 other guys on that offensive line that have to hold it down. Braden Pagan was really good at Utah State, but will that translate to the Power 4 level? I don't really question much of their defensive stuff. I just trust that they'll get it right. They've been very good defensively. But yet again, question marks about Utah's offense, and that's kind of been what has just been the bugaboo of their chances of really achieving true greatness in college football. And I'll just say from my side of things, I'm sitting over here like, what does BYU got to do to earn some respect around here?
Well, guys, and Utah didn't even go out and get Haas Haney, which we all know is better than Devin Dampier. So it doesn't make sense. It's
so I've been told.
Illogical. Maybe our fellow Cowboy Brett McMurphy was indulging in the spirits a little heavily. Maybe that was it.
Could be. Could be the
Notre Dame winning the Natty also doesn't make any sense either, because I don't think the record's going to set them up to be successful in the playoffs. They're going to run into a brick wall when they enter the playoffs because their schedule's extremely soft. Yeah, they have a couple big games.
Cody, they're going to run into a brick wall in Provo, Utah in mid-October. Let's just put it that way.
But they're still going to get in the playoff because they're going to win all those other cupcake games in between them, and then they're going to get to the playoff, and they're going to get their face kicked in because they're not prepared. When you only have one tough game all year, I'm sorry, you're not prepared for the physicality of playoff football. You might not even be prepared for the physicality of bowl game football. This is the worst year ever to give Notre Dame this pass is with this schedule that Notre Dame got. It's absolute insanity to me, fellas.
You know, on that Utah front, though, the schedule is so easy to start the year. Idaho, Arkansas, Utah State.
Utah what?
Yeah. 3-0 at Iowa State.
Okay,
I don't think Iowa State's going to be very good. Kansas at home.
Win.
That's a win. They're 5-0, and then they go at Colorado.
Should be a win.
Yeah, they might start 6-0 next season, given the schedule they have. That can propel. Now, you know, we've seen plenty of teams. Cincinnati's a great example this year, just completely bottoming out after having a great first half of the season. That could happen. But if you start 6-0, that kind of momentum driving into games at home against Houston, on the road against Cincinnati. I mean, that's 7-1. That's good.
I just threw up in my mouth a little bit when you said Utah could be 6-0.
Here's the thing. I've looked at their schedule and I agree. They could, the first half of the season, they should cakewalk through it. But to your point, Drake, that's going to build the hype train. That's what's going to be carrying Utah's rep in the back half of the season. Yeah, they'll probably falter a time or two in that back half, but let's say they're 10-2 at that point. they're going to be having a lot of people saying, well, remember how good they were early this season. And I know that the opponents, it's supposed to be monitored, but we all know that it can be overlooked at times. I feel like the hype train, if the first half of the season goes the way that it projects for Utah, that's what will kind of drive this whole true playoff push for Utah, as much as I believe that it's BYU's rightful place to be in that spot.
Fellas, do we need Utah to be good? Because nationally, everybody and their mom has just been waiting and hoping and praying for Utah to take over the Big 12, to win a Big 12 title. It does seem like they get the most push of everybody in the conference from a national perspective. It almost feels like it would be better for the Big 12 at this point in time for Utah to, I don't know, win something, because they are projected to win almost everything all the time. I don't get it, but they get more national respect than even Texas Tech for whatever reason. Yeah. It almost feels like the country wants Utah to be good, and that will help the Big 12 look good. But then if Utah is good, they're just going to talk about wanting to be in the Big 10 anyways. So it's darned if you do, darned if you don't, huh?
Yeah, that's good. That's a really good point, though. You're right. I mean, I also don't entirely understand it. I guess it's the Rose Bowls there at the Pac-12 championships that gave them a good leg up.
Okay,
but you're right. America they have rose-colored glasses.
They do.
Well, I can just say this. I do know that the national media absolutely loved Kyle Whittingham, and they're going to love him in Michigan, obviously, because he has the national media eating out of his hand. I cover Utah heavily out here in Utah, doing what I do in sports radio. He has built a reputation for Utah that they're a darling of the media because he treated the national media so well. I think that's being obviously projected on to what Morgan Scalley is doing now. And Morgan's going to do, I think, the exact same thing. He's going to treat the national media very well, and they'll obviously hype up Utah as a result. But to your point, speaking of you, Cody, you've got to see Utah finally go out there and achieve what people are projecting them to do. Remember, they were supposed to come into this league year one and run it. And yes, I know that the Cam Rising injury derailed everything for that football team, but they've got to finally live up to the hype if they really want the national media to continue to give them the love that they're giving them.
Bro, I would bet JT's left testy that if they had the exact same record as you did, they would have been in the playoffs this year.
You're probably right.
If they had the exact same scenario as BYU, same schedule, same outcome, same Heisman contenders, whatever. Over the last 2 years, they'd have got in one of those years just because of their darling rose-colored glasses by the national media. I agree. Maybe I'm wrong, but
and that's not even. In saying that, I'm not even mad at Utah about that. I'm more mad that BYU didn't get that. But good for you, Utah. We're not upset. It's just do something. Do something.
It almost feels like we need to come around to Utah being good. We need Utah to win a title to give the Big 12 more credibility, and then we beat the tar out of Utah for the next 5, 6, 7 years. That's what we all need to happen.
And now JT is checking his manhood to make sure it's all in.
Yep, he's to make sure he's good to go. That is Jake Hatch of Locked On Cougars, Cody Stovall, Locked On Oklahoma State. Those two guys find them every single day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. This has been, it always will be, Locked On. Thanks for making our shows your first listen every single day. It's the No Say Grande Squad.